In the passage that we just read, we encounter Jesus by the Sea of Galilee in an area called Capernaum, the hometown of Peter and Andrew. Jesus gets into Peter's boat and starts to teach people because they are eager to listen to him, probably also eager to see him perform a little more miracles. After he has taught the people, he tells Peter to cast his net into the deep waters and to get some fish. Well, this is a strange request from Jesus, or a strange command from Jesus. Peter is cleaning his nets, which means he's just finished his night shift, the evening catching time. And now Jesus is telling him to do it again, but this time to go into deep waters to do this. Now, it's not the right place for a fisherman who has been fishing for years. He knows that you don't go into deep waters to catch fish that time of the night. But as it is Jesus telling him to do this, Peter obliged and said, because you are telling us, we will do this. Now, think about this. If you're very good at art and you've been doing art for many years, and somebody who has no clue about art or does not have the eye for art tells you, you should have drawn this way or you should have painted this way, think about how you would react to that person or what you would think about that person. Jesus was a carpenter. Jesus was a preacher, and he's telling Peter, who's a fisherman and who's been fishing for years in that spot, that he has to go back and fish in a deep side of the waters later at night than the usual time of fishing. And Peter says, because it's you telling us, we will do this. Sometimes, quite often actually, the things of God does not make sense logically to us. They may go against the grain of what we believe. They may go against anything of what we believe because it seems illogical. But we have to understand that when God tells us to do something, he knows the bigger picture. He knows better than we know. God has never been wrong and will never be wrong. God, in fact, has a perfect track record. And people who have trusted him have never, ever been disappointed. Look at the person called Noah, who was told that he has to build a boat because rains were going to come. Whether they experienced flood rains before that, we do not know. It seems to be the first record of a flood ever. And yet Noah was told to build a boat because a flood was going to come. And it may not have been logical to him and may not have made sense to him, but because it was God who told him to do this, Noah obeyed and built an ark. It took him many, many years, but he obeyed God, and God was proven to be right. Take a man like Abraham. Abraham was an old man. Both him and his wife were past the age of childbearing. And God said to Abraham, you will have a son, of your very own son. And many years later, Abraham was still doubting whether this will happen because it's not come true. And yet it did. God was faithful and God proved that he was right. And it was illogical to Abraham. Even his wife Sarah, when Abraham was told, when Abraham told her that they will have a son, and when the angel said they will have a son, she laughed because she couldn't believe it. It was illogical. But it was God who said it would happen. Therefore, it could be trusted. Now, in the same way, this was an illogical request. It was illogical of Jesus to say to Peter, go into the deep water and throw your nets and go and see what happens. Well, what happened? They had so much fish that they had to call their friends and their colleagues, John and James, to come over and to help them with this miraculous fish, because God knew best and we can trust him. He's never been wrong. He will never be wrong. And we can always trust him when he calls us to do something. Now, the interesting thing that happens next is that Jesus asked these guys, these fishermen, to become his disciples and to follow him. Now, the invitation to follow him is an invitation to come into a relationship with him, to learn from him, to listen to him teach, to be changed by him. This invitation to follow him. Now, the interesting thing about this, again, here's the thing that doesn't make sense. In those days, teachers didn't ask disciples to follow them. A disciple chose their teachers. They would have options of maybe 3 or 4 teachers, and the disciple would always choose the teacher. This is the first time ever that the teacher chooses his disciples. And it is quite remarkable, because Jesus, when he does that, is inviting us into a relationship with him, a relationship that changes our lives forever, a relationship where we can learn more about him, a relationship where we are prepared to follow him and to listen to him, and where we can be changed by him so that we can truly, truly become his disciples.